All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best podcast concentrating on the topic of nu metal. I am your co-host, Jay Horskow. With me, I have the notorious TIM, my co-host and partner in crime, Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how are you?
I'm great. What's up, man?
I am fucking fantastic. The weather is finally getting colder, so I'm not so fat and hot anymore. This is some good shit. I listened to the new Marilyn Manson album earlier today, and I'm really surprised by that. We're going to get into that in a minute. But first, let me introduce our special guest. Joining us from the band ZoneZero, we have Jordan Sloan. Jordan, thanks for joining.
Of course. You guys, thanks for having me. This is great.
It is definitely our pleasure. I know you were busy with being locked in the house like the rest of us, so we really do appreciate your time. I think Tim and I picked an opportune time to start having guests because it's not like anybody's out on tour. So it kind of just sort of works out for our favor.
Perfect.
I'm sure people on tour would do it anyway.
This is true. But now we get to tie one on. Well, you and I get to tie one on, Tim. You know, Jordan's drinking liquid metal water. We get to tie one on a Saturday night and have a little bit of a loose conversation. So, Jordan, before we start blathering about nu metal incessantly, why don't you give our listeners, introduce yourself, tell them about, your band, all that sort of stuff, and then we'll go into the details from there.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm Jordan. I sing in a band called ZoneZero. We're from Columbus, Ohio. Started about 3 years ago, kind of a completely different genre, but then I was just was doing the old school metalcore thing like everyone else was at the time. They were ripping off like Martyr AD and Disembodied and stuff. And I was like, I'm trying to hop on that train and started writing a bunch of music. And then like that kind of fell apart. And I was like, well, the name's cool. I'm taking that. It's a Vision of Disorder song. Like who doesn't like that? I'm taking that name.
Gonna ask if that's where it came from. Fantastic.
It was a Vision of Disorder song, and I was like, I'm taking that name. I'm just gonna run with it. And I was like, what's something I really, really enjoy? What was something I always grew up on? And I realized that like I've been a fan of nu metal since I was maybe like 10 years old. Like I'm 25 now, so it was like 2005, kind of like the end times of when that was stopped becoming cool, and bands started wearing camo shorts and playing Pantera.
Hey man, nu metal never became uncool in my eyes.
That's what I'm saying. I was
it didn't become uncool, but to Jordan's point. I think I always associate Jordan that tipping point to when Throwdown started ripping off Pantera.
Right. Exactly.
Once Throwdown became a Pantera clone, no offense to Dave Peters or any of those guys, I was like, I think we have reached the high water mark, and we got to look at other stuff. You're right. That's the era of what was it, white belts, and Castro hats, and all that fun stuff.
18 Visions rip-off bands.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, then we just kind of. It's actually just been me for a long time. It was I played guitar in the band initially and had a singer, and our bass player who was in the band is actually our guitar player now. And I just wrote a bunch of music, and I was like, who am I going to get to sing on this? Who am I going to sing on this? Looking for singers all over the place. And then realized one day, I was like, well, I'm just going to throw some vocals on it and see what happens. And a lot of friends were like, this is really good. Let's keep doing that. And then a couple friends hit me up, and they're just like, hey, just so you know, if you ever need band members, conveniently, it was like, hey, you need a guitar player, hey, you need a bass player, hey, you need a drummer. And I was like, I need all of those things. So, of course, and it was just good friends of mine were just like, I'm down to help anyway. So we have a solidified lineup now, and just slowly working on a bunch of new stuff. We dropped an EP in January, and it's been doing really well. And, just trying to have as much fun as possible and trying to keep it as authentic as possible without being too cliche. Like, there's a lot of bands that they can't help but write. They can't stop writing breakdowns and like 8-string music, and they're like, oh well, we threw a scratch part in there, so that makes us a nu metal band, right? And I'm like, not really. I was like, I guess, but like, I was having a conversation with another dude who was like, yeah, I want to show you this like new song. I was like, okay, cool. And then he heard it, I heard it, and it was just like, it's a good song, but it was just like, just a bunch of like beat down riffs and stuff, and then they had like a cool like kind of jumpy Limp Bizkit type part in there, and then I went right back to the beat down stuff, and I was like, oh well, here's my band. He was like, whoa, this sounds like Spine Shanks, whatever stuff. And I was like, see, there you go. I was like, I don't want to like sound like a dick and brag or anything. I was like, I want to keep it as authentic as possible when it comes to writing genuine like nu metal music for people. So especially in 2020
right, can't lose perception of the fact of what year it is. But you're right. I mean, and truth be told, some of that nu metal tribute stuff does sound kind of corny because they do what you said. They take all these different things that were signs of nu metal music, and they throw it all in a blender and 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work. But you guys actually, you're right. I mean, when Tim said, hey, the singer from ZoneZero, which he'd sent me twice before, hey, they're coming on, got to check this stuff out. And I listened to it, and I had it on in the background, and I kept stopping and looking at my head unit. Because 2001, you guys are around, you'd be on the fucking radio, you'd be playing Ozfest. Like, it falls right, and I don't say that to, like, dong you off or whatever, but it falls right into that genre without sounding like a cheesy cover band trying to do a little bit, like you said, a little bit of Spine Shank, a little bit of Fear Factory. Like, I mean, it all came together. And I was texting Tim earlier today. I'm like, dude, I've went through their entire catalog twice. I think I just spent like $40 on Bandcamp. I ordered a t-shirt. I mean, like, we're good to go, man. We're good to go. But no, let's talk, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan, let's talk a little bit about the EP you guys just put out.
Yeah, of course. It's, for those of you who don't know, the title is a very kind of confusing sounding word. I've had a lot of friends who are like, how the fuck do you say that? It's actually, I took the word from a Mudvayne song. I think it's The End of All Things to Come. He says something about cyanide. He says, I need a vial of strychnine or something like that. And I was like, strychnine, that's a cool word. I've never heard that word before, but look that up. Basically, strychnine is like it's like a drug. It's almost like a rat poison. It kind of kills you while you're asleep. And I was like, strychnine dream. That sounds like a cool phrase. And I was like, I'm just going to call the EP that, whatever. And so basically the vibe of the EP is like dying in your sleep. And so EP is called Strychnine Dream. I wrote it over the course of about a year. I put there's a song in the EP called Be Like Me. That was the first song I ever put out with the whole new metal sound to it. And that was actually, I was supposed to play, we were supposed to be like a 3-piece around that time. And I was trying to play guitar and sing. It was going to be like a Machine Head Burning Red kind of sounding. Like I was going to head in that direction. And so, because that riff is a straight up just like Machine Head riff. And then waited a little while, and then I was like, see how this kind of plays out. And I was focused on a bunch of other musical stuff, and then I was like, I'm gonna write another song to put out around Halloween. Came out Halloween last year. The song All in Your Head, and then put that one out. People really, really liked it. And I'm like, I guess I better keep doing this. And then just slowly kept a couple more demos coming and built the band up. And so that's everything I did for that EP was just 100% me. I recorded it myself here, my little home studio here. Recorded it, mixed it, did all the fun stuff, got the CDs printed up, put it up on Spotify and Bandcamp, Apple Music, all that stuff. Just kind of did it as DIY as I possibly could, just to show like that I didn't really rely. Like I did all the artwork myself and everything for the stuff, and I just wanted it to be like I always hate asking for help a lot. Like I really don't care for asking. I'm always such a stubborn person when it comes to asking for help. So I always just want to do it myself and make sure it was done right. But the EP's got a lot of really good reception. A lot of people, I knew it was good, like it was going good, when a lot of people I had no idea who they were hitting me up or like tagging me posts like, this is so sick. And I'm just like, thanks, man. I don't think I know who you are. And then I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't know this person. Like they don't know this person and they like my music. That's so cool. And it still just beats me out. Like it's just so cool. Just even if someone's just like, hey, man, check your stuff. That's really cool. I'm just like, you took the time out of your day to listen to my band. That's so cool. It's just it's cool feeling when people like music. It's such a cool thing.
Yeah, that I'll tell you what, man. I was, when we first started the show, I was searching around just for like hashtags of new metal, and I found the new metal Reddit, and
that's a good place for us. I love that.
Yeah, they were talking about you guys a lot, and I went on Apple Music, pulled up the EP, and I was fucking blown away, dude. I'm like, this shit is fucking good. Like, this is new metal. This is the new metal I like.
I'm really
like
glad.
it. It feels like real heartfelt and shit. I like it, man.
It's not like you're not pandering, right? You're not like you're not dancing around in like Mudvayne face paint with a Slipknot mask with like a Spine Shank hairdo. You know what I mean? Like it sounds. Honestly, I mean, you put that. And I say that in all sincerity. You put this stuff back in the early aughts. It's on the radio, right? Because I kept looking at the radio. Like, am I listening to radio? Did my shit switch over to my radio, or is this on my phone? Because that was the thing that was on the radio.
Yep.
That was a big thing. I hear a lot of stories about like our radio station here is and there's a lot of stuff to do with like the Blitz in Columbus, and that was a lot of music that was played, and I hate to call them, the old people in hardcore call them old heads now. It's like all the old heads and all the dudes who were around in the old scene and everything. Our guy who actually does a lot of our artwork he did the two singles, Virus and Music. His name's Colin Simula. He worked for actually a record label called Face Down for a while. He was on Face Down in a band called Symphony in Peril.
No shit, I've got that CD floating around back here. Yeah. What was the first album?
I forget.
It's the girl floating over the ground and there's all blood below her, right? Because Face Down was the Christian records, right, Jordan?
That was the one. Let's see. Symphony. I could easily just text it.
Yeah, I haven't heard that name forever.
Oh yeah, Symphony in Peril, Nodes of Renvier. Who else was it? It was Disciple AD.
Horse Trophy is what it's called.
Yes, the Horse Trophy. That was it. I was a big fan of. I think they were Face Down. Looking Forward.
That sounds familiar.
Was that Face Down, the straight edge Christian posse band?
Shockwave.
Yeah. Shockwave. Yeah. Bloody Sunday. That first album was amazing. Yeah.
But I always run our stuff past him, especially like for our work and stuff. Like he's in a band around here now. Really heavy, like if you like stuff like Crowbar and stuff. It's called oh my god, I can't believe I just forgot his band's name. Horrible.
What radio station do you have there?
It's 99.7 The Blitz, which is like it's probably the big like hard rock radio station around here.
You don't have WEBN in Columbus?
I don't know. I don't really, and like I avoid putting the radio on as much as possible.
Oh, okay.
Like I drive kind of an older car, and it's either I have my phone plugged in, I have CDs on my console, or like my phone's plugged in. So like my phone dies or I forget anything like that, I guess I can listen to fucking radio now. So
I'm the same way, man. I still buy CDs, and every time a jewel case shows up,
CD rack in there.
Every time one shows up in the mail, my wife is like, why are you still buying these things?
Yeah, another one. Yeah.
I told my girlfriend, don't look at my Discogs card because it's really full. Don't. I do. There's a lot of. I'm in a couple different like group chats and just friends with some kids. I'm an also big like merch collector. Like I've spent. I couldn't even call it like add up the money I spent on old merch and stuff. And it's really funny because like a lot of the shirts I showed Colin, the guy does our artwork. He's like, oh yeah, I had that back in the day. I remember having that shirt and everything. I'm like, yeah, can you believe it? I found it on eBay for like $15. It's crazy. And then I'm like, I'll get one in the mail. My girlfriend's like, how much did you pay for that? And I'm like, I sure did.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of old stuff. And there's as far as CD collecting goes, no one really thinks about rare CDs as much. And there was one I have though that is worth $150 on Discogs right now. It's Stain's Tormented. I have that record on CD. It's the first one they put out before they put out like Dysfunction and stuff.
Right.
On it, it's on like that like DIY little record label they had or whatever. It's the one that he tells the famous story of him, Fred Durst throwing the CD across the room when they opened up for Limp Bizkit and them leading them to getting signed by Fred Durst. But this kid's like, I need a copy of this record. I'm looking for it everywhere. And I'm just like, oh, you mean this one? And I'll hold it up. He's like, I know you own that record. Quit doing that.
Tim and I were talking about I think it was last episode we were talking about where we did the Chimera deep dive, where I remember paying like $50+ for what was it painting the white to gray on eBay.
Yeah.
It was like that was like a catch for me. And then I was trying to find that Slipknot mate feed kill repeat, and I couldn't get it for less than find it for less than $150. I was like, yeah, not
even
for a CD.
Even then I don't even know if it's going to be authentic. I mean, it could be. I've seen like represses and stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh, only out of 1,000 copies, there's hardly any chance you're going to find one." And I'm like, I'm good with having the rip of it in my iTunes. Like, I'm good. That's the thing is, I didn't want to rip it off YouTube either. I was like, I got to find a good rip of it. I got to go hunting for this thing.
Yeah.
Such a weird like audio file, and I just like I got to have good stuff. Like whenever I put demos in our like my iTunes to keep on my phone, I have to title it. I have to put album artwork on it.
Tim and I are the same way.
Yep. Absolutely, man.
So let me ask you this though, Jordan. I mean, we've covered a shit ton of ground in like 20 minutes, so I want to take a pause to go back. So this really started as a passion project, a one-man thing, and then your most recent output was an actual live EP that you recorded with a full backing band.
Yeah, that's those are the dudes that are just, I kind of wanted to do it initially and just have like revolving door, like the whole Marilyn Manson thing, where you just kind of got going. But like, I had given the guys the songs. I made guitar playthroughs for them, and I was like, "Here's how you play the song. Let's do these songs at practice." First song, I hadn't known these guys for the longest time. It was not like I was hiring or anything, but it was just buddies of mine who were just like, "Yeah, this would be a cool thing. I'm really glad." And then had the first practice, kicked into we're gonna play the EP in order. Losing my grip, the little intro starts playing, our drummer starts playing along to it, and then it really kicked in, and I just like lost my mind. I was like, this sounds awesome. I can't believe I'm hearing this full band for the first time. I've been sitting on this song for like 2 months now. It's crazy. And then like right after practice, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do the whole backing band anymore. These guys are. I was like, I'm just gonna keep these guys on as the full time. And but yeah, that live EP, I wanted to do that at first, just an actual live thing. That was actually just done in our bass player's basement. He actually is a sound guy at a venue here in Columbus called Big Room Bar. And we were going to try to do it at that venue and just run it to the board and everything. And he's like, well, let's actually just do it. In my basement, he had like 4 cameras set up. Everyone in our band practically is like a sound engineer. Like when we tour, we plan on using our drummer he's like, yeah, I'll just mix us live and everything. Like we can fit all of our guitar gear and everything into one little case. And it's just, so he brought his computer over, we set it all up. He just played an E electronic drum kit and then just had it all triggered and we just recorded the session. He mixed it and was like, cool, here's the live album. And and we're going to actually start recording our practices and then just like observing them under a microscope and hearing like, okay, cool, this is tight, but this individual performance could use work. Like guitars can tighten up here, work on your singing here, work on this part. So yeah, the live EP was a fun little thing we decided to do. We wanted to do it like a long time ago in front of people, and then when all this stuff happened, we're like, well, let's do it anyway. Like let's go just do it anyway. It'll just be a live session. So that was fun. That's probably gonna be the last thing we do for a little while. We got stuff going on. We actually got about 19 new songs just sitting on them, just ready to go.
Wow.
We just got to get the okay from the higher ups, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and to go.
So you guys are on a label now?
Not quite yet. Just not really. We're just kind of like talking about stuff.
Okay.
And kind of on the low a little bit. So like I may have said too much already.
All good. I'm sure we'll find out when when it happens.
So, but just working on a few things, kind of like behind the scenes, just like under the radar. But we're all just like, let's write as much as we possibly can. And I think there's about 13 finished songs and about 6 or 7 that's just gonna kind of chill. The 13 of them that are done, I really, really like. I think that's just gonna be the ones. But if we decide somewhere down the line that one of them would work better, we're just not kind of finish them. So just got a lot of stuff, got that like a cover and stuff we're just kind of sitting on and waiting around. And we're actually working on, we decided to do the band, we decided to do ZoneZero Biggest Loser, because we're all kind of we're kind of big dudes in the band. I'm about 6'5", I'm a big tall boy. 6'5", I'm about 260 something right now. Our bass player is a little shorter than me, and he actually he's done the most. He just is now under 3, and he was like, it's tremendous. Like I look at side to side of him, he's doing amazing. So we're all just like, yeah, we got time to do this before tours and shows happening. So like, let's just not be fat. Let's try that. And so we're like, we got all this time. Like, why not try that now? And so we've all been really good. Actually, our guitar player, Rob, he actually just got married today. Before I was like 10 minutes before we hopped on the site, just got home from his wedding. And I saw him in his suit, and I was just like, man, you look great. Like, I saw him, I was like, you've gotten so thin. I didn't even notice. Like, all of us had just gotten like so fit. So we're just taking that time to just kind of like improve upon us as much as the music is the important thing, like looking like a good professional band is also like up there. And so we're just doing that. And we've got a collaborative notes list in our phones here. I'm like, all right, write down album covers think are cool. Write down things we could work on. Write down like inspirations. Like we're just trying to take it as seriously as we can at this point. So
I mean, good for you guys for keeping busy, and not only keeping busy, keeping productive. There's a difference between being busy and being productive. I mean, I said when all this shit started, I was going to start exercising and losing weight, and I bet there's like 6 inches of fucking dust on my treadmill over there. I've been depressed and eaten my feelings. I think I've gone up a t-shirt size. It's not a good look, but good for
Same
you guys,
here, man.
Yeah, good for you guys for keeping busy. Because I said to Tim, we were talking a week or so ago, and I said, I hope these bands that had tours fall apart or had things that they were working on kind of fall by the wayside. I mean, I hope they would just say, fuck it, let's just go in and let's write and just keep writing and keep writing and keep writing until we start knocking out some things that we really, truly love.
Oh yeah. And that's what we've been doing. Just kind of, I'm like, I'd rather go into the process of like when stuff clears up, like ready to just rip it. Like I want to do that. That's why we're going to start. We moved into a brand new practice space. And we have the ability to like mic up everything and record everything. So we're going to just start recording our practices and just kind of micro observe things. And that way, when things happen, we're just going to come right out of the gate and be as tight as possible. And we're going to just start practicing like just new stuff. And I'm like, I don't care if people don't hear this for another year and a half or whatever. Like, I'd rather us know it now. And I don't want them to hear a record and have it sound really cool on the record, and then we play it live, and I'm like, oh, what is this part? What is what will we do here? And I'm prepared. And so, yeah, we're just taking the time, and we've all kind of in the meantime, like our drummer Kevin, he records bands in the Columbus area, and just he's insanely good. He mixed and mastered both Virus and Misdirected because I was like, I did all our stuff before, like the EP and all that stuff. I was like, well, Kevin, you're insanely good at this. Like, why don't we just start doing this stuff with you then? So we'll just get together. We actually did, fun fact, we did Virus right before we did. That's a coincidence. We didn't call Virus that because of all this stuff happening. It was a really cool song title I heard, and I was like, you know what? That'd be a cool title. That just sounds Y2K so. And so why don't we just use that? And so I wrote lyrics around it and everything, and we recorded it like late February before any of us knew that this was going to be as cool it was. And then we played one more show the day that like Ohio got locked down, and we were like an hour away from playing a show. We were like, let's just do this one and then we'll see what happens. And we played that song live, and I'm like, yeah, that song's coming out in April. And then, like a couple days before it came out, I was like, oh shit, are people going to think we're like weird for this? Like putting out a song in the middle of all this stuff going on called Virus? Is this really appropriate?
I mean,
nobody cared.
No, Jordan. I mean, let's be honest here. Cattle Decapitation did a giant T-shirt that said "Bring Back the Plague." I've actually got it upstairs, and I've got the bumper sticker.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm like, you want to talk about some dicey timing?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. It's just and then so we did that before we were able to record that with all of us each other, and we still we keep it safe. Our guitar player was like, hey, my wife was around someone who may have had it, so I'm going to take 2 weeks off practice. And we're like, cool, that's fine. And then when we were getting ready to do Misdirected, I actually finished writing that song the day Virus came out. So I was like, this would be cool. We could work on this one next. So we worked on that one right after the Deftones cover came out. And we were like, well, how do you want to do this? Since we're all kind of cooped up at home. And so all of us recorded our parts at home individually. And we just sent them to our drummer. And it was like, here we go. Here's our stuff. And guitar players just recorded their guitar parts at home on their stuff. And then I recorded vocals at our practice space, just set up my mic and everything, recorded vocals. And bass player tracked his stuff at home. And our drummer did his thing. And we just sent it in. And we were like, wow, that's cool. Like, maybe we can set a record, like, first band to record a single in quarantine. I was like, that sounds kind of dystopian, but who knows? Like, I was like, maybe we could start making masks like all these other bands did.
Hey man, take your notes where you can, right?
Take your notes where you can, right?
Right, exactly. And but we've been trying to keep productive. Like, our drummer records bands. Our bass player also records bands. Our guitar player records bands. So, I can't stop starting projects. Like I just found that out during quarantine. Like I'll be like, oh, this facet of this genre of music is pretty cool. Why don't I take a crack at it? No one needs to hear this, but why don't I try it anyway? And so the spawn of that was me and my roommate started a electronic project called God Machine, and it's just old like Aphex Twin, like Crystal Method, stuff like that. It's just real cool, just like breakbeat drum and bass stuff. And it was actually just me for a long time. And then when he moved in, I was like, yeah, we both like electronic music. Why don't we do this? And so we plan on dropping an EP probably around Halloween time. We're going to do 2 new songs. And then we covered the Halloween theme from 1978. So we're
Nice.
going to do that. And I was just like, I was like, I got to stop starting musical projects though. So I was like, I'm getting too wrapped up in this.
So I got to say, Jordan, you were talking about, this is your first attempt ever singing. You sound really, really good. So what are your, aside from the obvious nu metal nods, what are some of your influences, some of the vocalists that you say, damn, I wish I could sound like that?
A lot of them, both new and non-nu metal stuff. Big influence on me is Matt Holt for Nothing Face. Massive inspiration on me. I was really, really upset. That was one of the first bands I really latched on to getting into metal, aside from Slipknot. And it was really, really upset when he passed away. And, obviously like Corey Taylor and stuff like that within the nu metal realm. But some of the non-new ones, I really like Michael Stipe from R.E.M. I've always found his vocal approach to be really just kind of different. It just sounds so unique, but not in like, it's a really good way. And another one being like Mike Patton from Faith No More is another massive inspiration. I watched a million videos of him. Like, there's always big compilations. It's like Mike Patton just doing every possible style, and it's him doing anything from like the stuff he does in Fantomas to like Faith No More, and then Mr. Bungle, and when he does like opera stuff, like the Mono Kane or whatever that's called. And basically those are the 4 big ones. I tried when I was trying to write music for this, it was almost coming out like the music was coming out real Static X-y, and so I was trying to do the Wayne Static vocals, and I was like, nah, this isn't working. I'm not going to be able to do like the stuttery, percussive vocals that he does, and I was like, this is gonna sound bad. And so I was like, I'm just gonna stick to the stuff I know. And so there's a couple more. There's a lot of like old like grungy bands I like, and Lane Staley was one of the first ones I also listened to. And first singer I ever really heard that I knew I wanted to sing as a whole was Frank Sinatra. I got into like jazz and stuff real early on in life, and grew up listening to that stuff like on the school bus. And I was always like, man, Sinatra, this guy Sinatra, he's incredible. And
Jordan, that is an influence I did not ever expect to hear out of a guy singing in a metal, hardcore, or adjacent band, just Frank Sinatra. I mean, I love Frank Sinatra, but it's not an influence I would ever expect.
And it's funny, I was thinking about that as much as I'm like, there's a lot of metal guys and a lot of metal singers I've noticed their inspirations are also like other metal dudes. And so there's sometimes where I'm just like, well, you got to have other influences that aren't so aggressive, because when it comes time to do like your real low, clean singing parts, like your ballads or whatever, like you can't just go screaming over them. You got to have a little bit of finesse. And so I was like, what can I apply to like softer singing stuff? And so that's where the Sinatra influence comes in, is the real low, slow stuff. And I love when bands do it good, like when they do the real quiet stuff. Like Disturbed is killing it lately with their, doing the soft covers of stuff. Like they did Sound of Silence, and they just did, I think If I Ever Lose My Faith in You by Sting. They just did that one yesterday, put out that cover yesterday. It's super good. And they're one of the few bands I think can pull off the soft stuff. And so I always like when singers have multiple influences that aren't just, just other metal guys. So.
And I think, and Tim and I have talked about this, I think you kind of need that, because if you listen to nothing but metal or hardcore nonstop, you're going to make yourself crazy, right? You're going to make yourself certifiable. I
need a massive break sometimes. Like I just need to stop listening to it, and I'll put on, I'm a big fan of like 80s new wave stuff too. And I'll listen to stuff like Simple Minds is one of my favorite 80s bands of all time. And I'll put stuff on like that just for like a straight week. Or I listen to a lot of ambient stuff, like a lot of soundtracks.
And that's another thing I do too. Is just like I work with like soundtrack stuff. I'm trying to get into film scoring. I was actually trying to score a buddy of mine's real short horror film. I think he gave up on the project, but that was another thing. If I ever need a break from metal stuff, it's always just like movie scores or even just getting away from music altogether. Like I'm a big horror movie buff, so I'll take a break from music and watch movies and stuff like that. And then the first thing I always put on when I try to like listen to something heavy is I'll throw in Perseverance by Hatebreed. That's my go-to. Like you got to go full bore, so I'm always just put that in. And I'm just like
Jamie Josta turns into Tony Robbins for the first time in that album. It's all positivity and moving forward. And it's funny. And I believe I heard you right, Jordan, when you said Indian music, right? Because
sorry. I was trying to speak up here. Like ambient stuff. Like
because I would say Indian music. I'm all in.
That stuff is crazy.
And the sitar, the time signatures, and I mean, I would love to find somebody that could melt that into some of the music we like. That
stuff is incredible. That's another thing. I try to be more open-minded too when it comes to listening to multiple genres. And sometimes I'll come across that stuff and I'm just like, this is crazy. I could never do this, but this is insane. And this just the level of musicality it takes to do this is crazy.
I think you guys are forgetting about Nile. They do that kind of stuff.
Oh my God. That's another band I love. That band is incredible.
Still, what is it, 20 years, 30 years they've been going, and they're still amazing. The albums they put out are still good.
Oh, yeah. That last one was insane. I know they don't have the same. It was Carl, and then that other guy, was it Dallas, I think his name was? And then this was like the first record without him, and I was like, that still kicks ass, so I don't care.
Absolutely. So let's talk about like the new metal scene in Ohio. Like how is that? Are you guys like one of the few, or I mean, because
I think so.
Okay.
There's not a lot of the new metal stuff. There's bands that kind of throw the influence into their sounds a little bit, but as far as I can tell, around Columbus, like we're one of the few. There's a few bands. I think there's a few bands in Cincinnati that are doing kind of doing the new metal thing. As far as Cleveland goes, I can't really think of anything in Cleveland aside from when Chimera was a new metal band for about 3 years before they went, full metalcore. But yeah, I think as much as I can think, I think that we're the only new metal band doing it, at least now. So a lot of the older bands that are still around who they could probably call new metal, they don't like that word and they don't want to be associated with it.
Yeah,
they're
it's,
like, we're
like a
hard alternative rock. Or,
Hard alternative. I got to write that down. Tim, we got to make T-shirts.
We're not new metal. We should.
We're not new metal. We're hard alternative.
And it was funny that you mentioned the thing where you talked about like, well, if you guys were around in 2001, you guys would be huge. I actually posted I just fuck around and mock up like merch designs just to when I'm bored. And there was one that had our logo on the front and like bright green on the back. I said, if this was Ozfest 2002, we'd be huge right now. And I really wanted to make that shirt.
You should have. You should.
Oh man, maybe one day we'll bring it back. I just think that was so funny. The whole guys were like, Jesus Christ.
Tim and I have we're still eventually gonna do pre-orders for our new metal alumni in the collegiate font T-shirt.
Oh my God,
we're old enough to call ourselves alumni that eventually it's come back around. So I wanna go into one thing because you mentioned it early. And this band is probably one of, if not my favorite bands of all time, VOD. And you are, and not to be ageist, but you're quite younger than me.
Yes.
So I'd like to like pick your brain on what was your first experience with them? What album was it? What was the one that said, where you said, shit, these guys are fucking amazing? Like, how did you come into that?
Yeah, I came across VOD actually, from a New York hardcore documentary, and it had like them and like 25 to Life.
Oh, the old one, yeah, Rick to Life and Danny Diablo.
Crown of Thorns. Yeah, I had them in it, and I'm always been fascinated. Like, I know I'm not like Ohio born and raised guy, and I got into like our local hardcore scene and stuff, and I'm still kind of like what they call like a tourist. They're like no tourist, like you're either in or you're out, and I'm just kind of like I'm still friends with a lot of my friends I've made just around the country, just who are into hardcore and trying to keep up on some bands and stuff like that. But I'm always in this old mindset where I'm like, okay, cool, I like old new metal. Like I'm also just accustomed to liking old hardcore too, and so a lot of it's like '90s hardcore that I like '90s hardcore metalcore, like All Out War and Earth Crisis and stuff like that. And but I came across VOD on that New York hardcore documentary, and they were just one of those bands. Like I would hear the snippets of like 25 to Life and Madball and all that stuff, and I'm like, this stuff is so cool, it's so aggressive and everything. But it all just kind of sounded like, okay, yeah, this is a hardcore band. And then I heard VOD, I'm like, man, these guys are just, they sound like no other. They're doing something different. And the way he approached the vocals was crazy. And then like it was really funny finding out later on that I'm like, oh my God, Blood Simple, like this is the guy from VOD too. That was another thing. I was like, oh my God, two of the best things. Like this guy like wrote some of the coolest like old '90s hardcore metalcore records, and then he wrote like this insane groove metal records too. Like it's but VOD was just, they stuck out to me in that documentary. I was like, I gotta know more. And then I went and bought the first record and then picked up like For the Bleeders and stuff like that, like Imprint. And but that first record, just as soon as it kicks in, it just kicks your ass. And I think it's really good. Just from start to finish, I was like, this is incredible. And then I just kind of I was brainstorming band name ideas, because the original band name, when it was supposed to be like an old, we almost sounded like Hatebreed basically, was called Agony. And I was like, how many bands are called Agony? Probably 1,000 plus. And I was like, that's not going to work. I don't want to be like Agony Ohio or like Agony US or anything. I was like, I don't want that stupid, moniker behind it. So I wanted to just stick with some original. I was like, well, and the only bands I found that were called ZoneZero were like two old like Japanese punk bands. And the thing is, I can play technicality on this. Their band name is two separate words. Ours is one. And so I'm going to, if anyone tries to lawyer us on anything, I'm going to say that's not the same at all. So I was like, ZoneZero is a cool name, and kind of picked that from him. And that's another thing, people, it's real funny. We always try to we're like, yeah, when shows and stuff pick back up, we're like, we're not gonna get ourselves in with the hardcore scene, because that just is it's not bad, but it's just like, that's not the kind of crowd we're trying to reach. But it's just funny when all my hardcore friends, when I first announced this band, they were like, VOD? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And I just thought it was really, people have been like, oh, like this band's great. Also, sick VOD reference. And I'm like, I'm going to hear that for the rest of my life. I know that. So.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, there's worse bands. There's worse bands to be compared to.
Right? Oh, yeah, I know.
I mean,
man,
is your band a tribute to Creed? Well, not yeah. or what's the other one? Nickelback? Yeah, not exactly.
Oh yeah, this band, we're Silver Side Up from Columbus, Ohio.
I want to go back to what you said about the hardcore scene, because I feel like, especially in the hardcore scene, it's like new metal is the dirtiest word ever, but like
it's crazy.
90% of hardcore kids secretly love new metal.
It's insane. I watch it firsthand every day. Like I'm a glutton for punishment. I cannot stay off Twitter. It's like the worst place you can possibly be, but I'm just like addicted. I just can't stay off. And so I get to see fights every day where like I dig a lot of the old stuff. Like I even like a lot of 80s hardcore stuff like Warzone and stuff like that. And but it's just funny. There was a big debate like it was a couple months ago where they were talking about like there's an old poster, and it was from some old hardcore show in the 90s, and it was hardcore kids beating up new metal kids like on the poster, and they were like hardcore dudes just beat, and they drew like the shirts like it was like a Cold Chamber shirt and a Slipknot shirt, and it was like hardcore dudes were beating up the new metal dorks, and they're like, we don't want that shit and everything, and everyone's like, yeah, that's funny, that's great, because new metal's just garbage and everything. And then a bunch of the new school kids who they all like Slipknot, but they like hardcore too, we're all fighting about this, and I'm just sitting back watching. I'm like, first of all, who cares? Like, you can enjoy both. It's fine. Like, I do that all the time. Like, I'll keep, I'll pull out, Chocolate Starfish. And when I'm done with some of that, I'll put in, Destroy the Machines by Earth Crisis. Like, I can do both. It's fine. But it's really funny. It's such a dividing line with the hardcore scene, because there's kids who, there's this new, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them, this band Vane from Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great band. I think that band is incredible. I've seen them a couple of times. They played Columbus. I saw them in Cincy with that band, Jesus Peace. That band is just incredible. Mm-hmm. First of all, live, but I love the way they subtly throw in like the new metal influence, like that song Fires Vibrates. As soon as it kicks in, it's like that, everyone's like, oh man, I hear the eyeless drum break in there, the Slipknot eyeless drum break. And I'm like, see, like that's kids relate, new metal sometimes like with the hardcore. So I think it's great. I think the genre crossing is cool stuff. And I have no problem with kids who are into hardcore, flexing their old Cold Chamber and their Slipknot shirts and stuff. So I don't care. Like it's music. As long as you're having a good time, who cares? So
right.
Yeah,
and you know what it is? It's the older guys who are the gatekeepers who are still
that's
rattling
exactly
on
what it
about
is.
agnostic front, and they're still talking about when is Inside Out going to do a reunion show, but then like Tim and I we talked before we started. We've had Adam Easterling on twice.
Yeah.
Tim just had me on his hardcore show. We got to interview Matt from Boundaries. He was going on about Slipknot.
That band's awesome too. I love that
Subliminal
band.
Verses and bands like Vane, bands like Harm's Way. There is a definitive new metal influence there, and you know what? You should be fucking proud of it because that was Fred Durst. As much as everybody makes fun of him, they were the biggest recording artist for a good 5 years in the world.
And people seem to forget that. And I think they're just like, I just think it's funny how bands like Limp Bizkit are like a meme and everything now. They're just like the butt of a joke to a lot of people now. But I just think it's really funny how I'm just like, well, you got to realize like when they were recording, I think it was when they were recording Chocolate Starfish, I was like, they blew $1 million on pre-production alone. Like they could afford to do that because they were the biggest band in the world. So there's a most recent meme that was popping up. It's the one where like the grandma's in the wheelchair and she says one thing, then they're like, yeah, sure, grandma, let's get you back.
I saw that one. I got tagged on it.
Yeah, there's one about Limp Bizkit, and it was like, when Limp Bizkit used to be the biggest band in the world, and they're like, all right, sure, grandma. There's a couple I disagree with, and there was a couple I was just like, let it go, and that's always one that gets me. Because I don't know. It's always, they always like those bands ironically now, I feel like too. Just like, haha, I'm the biggest Limp Bizkit fan. And I'm like, but are you? Like, do you actually like it? Or is it just like, haha, it's quirky. Fred Durst, get it? Woodstock 99. And I'm like, yeah, but do you like the music? They're just like, I guess, but haha, get it?
There's always going to be those people where, and I think, Tim, keep me honest here. We were talking about this in a previous episode where there was an interview, I think it was with Fred Durst, where he talked about how, one day we woke up and we realized the exact people we were making music to complain about, who bullied us and beat us up, were now fans of our music.
Now fans of the music.
And that was kind of weird. I mean, yeah, Limp Bizkit. I mean, what was it? The Rollin'. I think that video, they filmed that on the top of the World Trade Center.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
It's nuts to think about it. So there's a meme there too. I'm just not sadistic enough to make it. But there's so much of that influence, and I'm really glad that people like yourself and the younger generations are like, you know what, fuck it. That's what I grew up listening to. It's what I like. If you don't like it, eat a dick. I mean, it is what it is.
That's exactly what it is. And I think it's really funny how people complain. Like I read a lot of stories from older people who they grew up in that era, and they're like, oh yeah, like Limp Bizkit just went and did whatever they wanted to. I'm like, yeah, they had what I call fuck you money. Like they had the ability to do it, and they did it. Like anytime I realized this later, like growing up and everything, I used to hate and talk shit on a lot of stuff, and just as I didn't like it, like I couldn't just. Now it's just something like, that's not for me. Cool that they're doing it. It's just not my thing. And now my thing is whenever I hear anyone talk, any sort of shit about anybody, I'm like, well, they're making more money than I am. So I really can't say anything about that.
True.
And so like me and my roommate always had this silly debate about, I've been on a massive Metallica kick lately, just watching, I'm a big VHS collector as well. And I have the double copy of the Year and a Half in the Life Metallica documentary. And we were talking about it. He's like, wow. Man, he's like, it's crazy. School. Yeah, and it's one of my favorite. I first picked that up on DVD at a Guitar Center when I was like 14. And I was like, this is crazy. Is this how every band makes records? This is ridiculous. And then like the tour that followed, I'm like, man, bands tour for 2 years at a time. Later on finding out like that is not the case. But bands now are like, 3 weeks? Jesus Christ. And I'm like, that's nothing for bands back in the day. But we were just talking about like they cut to performances in between them, like the Live at Moscow stuff they did, same as Pantera did. And he was just like, man, it's crazy. He was like, Metallica got so successful, and like Lars is just the shittiest drummer possible.
Oh, he's
and I was
terrible.
Just like, and so I cut it down for him. I'm like, listen, I was like, when you really think about it, the minute he started getting really bad, was around the turn of the century. Like Les and M, incredible. He plays flawless. And then they go record, Saint Anger, which guilty pleasure, me and our drummer from ZoneZero, we love that record, and we will talk about that record, how it's insanely heavy and it has some badass riffs on it. I can talk about that record all day, but it's just around the turn of the century. Like, I just noticed he got more sloppy, and I was like, well, you know what? The thing that I realized is, like, you put anyone else in Metallica's place, like in the drummer's seat, it doesn't sound the same. And it just doesn't feel the same as it did. And so I always just argue with him, just, like, you know what, Lars Ulrich, he could buy my life 10 times over. So he can do whatever he wants now. Like, he doesn't have to be good now. They're a legacy band. He doesn't.
True.
They don't have to be flawless now.
True.
He can do whatever he wants.
And we can all thank Lars Ulrich for BitTorrent and all that stuff that led to Kazaa, all that stuff led to piracy. But while we're talking about Metallica, Jordan, I want to ask you, did you see the movie they did Through the Never? And if so, what did you think?
I saw like bits and pieces of it. It was really, I liked the concept of it. It was really a really cool idea. I've never really seen bands do stuff like that before. I did, however, just catch them. They did like this drive-in show, and I just caught that. And it was really cool they did that because they kind of showed you kind of what happens between, like behind the scenes, backstage stuff too. They'd finish a song, and sometimes like when bands would finish songs like that, they'd cut the lights down and then they'd come back out and do another song or whatever. And they kind of showed you like what they do, like changing guitars and the guys in the mixing room and all this stuff. But I do really need to watch Through the Never in full because it just seems like such a cool,
Dude,
wild concept.
It is. As an old guy who's a fan, Tim, did you see it, Through the Never?
I have seen it.
Dude, I watched it one Friday night. The wife was out. I'm like, you know what? She's not home. She's not going to want to watch this. Let me put this on. They were like fucking 3 riffs into Creeping Death. I had beer out. I was headbanging in the living room. Like, I was having a time of my life. It
Love
really
that.
was like, say what you will about Load and Reload and Lars being a douche canoe and all this other stuff. The fact of the matter is those first 4 albums are flawless. They're one of the few bands that whenever they tour, they play all the hits. They play all the songs you want to hear.
Yeah.
And you know what? You got to give them credit because I guarantee you they're sick of playing Whiplash. But
100%.
Their fans want to hear it and they play it. And you know what? I have the utmost respect for that.
Yeah, I think it's great. They were one of the first like metal bands. I grew up, on classic rock. Like my parents were never. There's some people who they got into the music, like the heavy stuff, because of their parents. Mine was kind of a gateway. Like my parents have no interest in like the heavy stuff whatsoever. I discovered over the last weekend, my parents like dance music, which is really weird because we're like hicks, like from the middle of nowhere. My parents are like, yeah, we put on this dance music station on our new speakers. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what did you just say? You guys listen to dance music? That's crazy. But the funny part is like grew up on like classic rock. My dad always had classic rock radio playing and stuff like that. And so he listened to, like Standard and Eagles and stuff like that. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to start listening to same stuff he does. And I got real into like, I don't know. There's some bands I listen back to now where I'm just like, how did I even listen to this as a kid? And,
dude, not for nothing, but I was listening to new metal. I'm old enough to when it was like a new thing. I have some truly repulsively embarrassing CDs in my collection. Like
there was a point in time where I was a kid and I was like, Styx, fucking awesome.
Yeah, but at least that's classic rock.
That is yeah.
I'm talking about like the band Lungs. Does anybody remember the band Lungs, Tim?
No.
I've seen that name on Discogs before.
It stands for losers usually never get signed. And it's like, it was like a 9-piece band. It was fucking terrible. I got to find it. But yeah, man, everybody's got some of those dogs in their closet. While we're talking about dogs in their closet, Jordan, what other new metal bands? I mean, we've covered Limp Bizkit. We've talked about Slipknot and all that sort of stuff. What are the other bands that you kind of dig that are kind of off the beaten path, and maybe you think that, you know what, they probably should have gotten more recognition?
A big one I always tell people about that I've never heard is like, and I've actually seen quite a few people talk about it lately, but like Nothing Face.
I was literally just gonna say, literally just gonna bring up Nothing Face because I seen that's your favorite band, right?
That's like I think I always kind of break it down in like what I think are like my favorite records and like by genre. So my all-time favorite record ever made by any band ever is the first Slipknot record. self-titled. Like,
Okay.
everyone says Iowa. I think it's great, but I will always go with the first one because it sounds like it was recorded in a room where like murders were taking place. Like, it just sounds so scary, and just it always puts me in a weird mindset when I listen to it. It just sounds terrifying. My favorite album, like in the realm of nu metal, is Violence by Nothing Face.
Dude, such a fucking good record.
Perfect record,
remember,
front to back.
What was the other one? Was it a tribute, something Everyday
Audio Guide to
Atrocity?
Everyday Atrocity.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. I think that was the one that I really, really dug.
And I have, me and this kid kind of like duke it out on Facebook Messenger with how much like we can flex our like big like old school merch dicks on each other, and just kind of like, oh, here's my collection. Oh, here's what I have. Oh, here's this rare thing that I have and everything. And he got me real good the other day, but I one-upped him. I have a shirt I found. It's funny because people tend to look on eBay or like Depop or whatever old stuff. I just Google the band and like the size, and like go on Google Images or whatever, and I find stuff. People like, I found this one on like Poshmark, whatever. This dude was like, he was a massive Not the Face fan. He was like, I have this shirt from like the audio guide days, and it's like, you're never gonna find this shirt ever again. The only other thing I think he had was like, it was a Dickies work jacket and with the Nothing Face logo on it, and he wanted like $300 for it. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me come back to you later on that. But first, let me buy this audio guide shirt. And I'm not proud of how much I paid for it, but I own it, and that's all that matters. And so, but I just think like that band is incredible. I literally just watched the video. It was like the history of like them kind of like walking through how the band was formed and everything, how they were like a grunge band, and then Matt Holt joined, and they were like, okay, cool, now we can write intense shit. And then like first record, Pacifier, was like kind of like Korn Jr. a little bit. It had a little bit of like the like dissonant guitar vibes and stuff, and then they put out Audio Guide, and it was just like smacks you in the face from the start. And then like you just put on like if I put on Violence, I'm putting it on from like track 1 all the way to the end. I can't put it on and like hear a song and go, cool, that's enough, I'm gonna go do something else. Like if I'm gonna listen to it, I want to listen to it front to back. I think it's a perfect record. So
yeah, dude, the chorus in Bleeder is one of my favorite parts of all time.
I think the first time I heard Blue Skin, I wanted to just like destroy just like everything. It's not even like that really heavy of a song, but just like the emotion, like just the riffs, it's just so sick. And I get so, whenever anyone I don't really, think listens to nu metal, they're just like, oh yeah, like this band Nothing Face. I'm just like, oh, you don't want to hear me talk about this right now, because I will not shut up. So,
yeah, Holt is one of the most underappreciated vocalists and lyricists of all time.
It's crazy. I'm just like, how do more people not have him on like their list of like top like vocalists and stuff? And I see it a lot. Like I'm a part of a couple just like goofy nu metal groups on Facebook, and they talk about that stuff a lot. And it's always just the same like big bands are just like, oh, what do you prefer, Korn or Slipknot or like this band? I'm just like, really, like mix it up a little. Throw some other bands in there. Like you have to know some of these older bands. I'm like, do something else. I'm like, pit the dude from Dry Kill Logic against Wayne Static or something. Like,
that first Dry Kill Logic, Tim and I are going to do a deep dive on that.
Love it.
Album. I swear it's fantastic, and it came out, right as nu metal was reaching its high watermark, and I still think that's there is not one bad track on that album.
It's so sick. I love it. I think and I actually found Dry Kill Logic when they were on their second record, I think. And they were a little more like metalcore sounding. Let's see, what was it? I forget what that record was called. Oh, the song's called Paper Tiger. And it was that video for that song. I was like, well, this is really cool. And then a buddy of mine got to talking. He's like, oh, yeah, their first record's crazy. I'm like, I don't think I've ever listened to it. And he goes, you, the big nu metal fan, have never heard that record? I was like, yeah, I always just assumed Dry Kill Logic was like a metalcore band, like Misery Signals or something. And he was like, oh, no, you got to go back and listen to it. And then I found the video that Rotor put up for that song Nightmare. And I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. Same thing that happened with like 40 Below Summer. Like when I was a kid, I like found like YouTube compilations of like top 10 breakdowns or whatever. And one of them was like that song FE from Dry Kill, or not from 40 Below Summer. Mm-hmm. And I go back and listen to it, and I'm like, how did I go all these years without remembering that this was a band? Or like that I like liked this at first. And so yeah, like it's just funny to see people are like, oh yeah, I'm a huge nu metal fan, and like that's all the same like oh, what do you prefer, like Korn or this band, like Korn or Slipknot or Linkin Park or whatever? And I'm just like, do something else, man.
Let me ask you this, Jordan. I'm going to name an obscure new metal band, Crossbreed.
Oh man, I was just talking about them the other day. That first record is crazy. I think. What did I bring up? I posted the link to that song "Machines" because it's like just such a low, like a lot of bands were doing the 7-string thing, and they were like tuning low enough. Like Korn was in like like A standard or whatever. But then I heard that song and I have like perfect pitch. Like everyone in that band makes fun of me because like I had the ability to like tune a guitar by ear perfectly, and like we were doing something the other day. We were making some production on a song for something, and I was like, oh yeah, you need to do like G sharp here and everything. And they're like, how the fuck do you do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I was dropped on my head or something. But
now we know. But Tim, now we know who to include when we do our Crossbreed deep dive. We're gonna
please. That's incredible. I love that record. But like I remember it was like I think because I'm a big fan of like going deeper than bands' records. Like I collect like samplers from records off Discogs because it's just so cool to know like I have an Iowa album sampler from Slipknot, and I was like, it's so cool that somebody had this and was like had no idea what was coming. Like they saw that and was like, cool, I wonder what this album's gonna sound like, and then that album just crushed. And so I look up like EPKs by bands like the Deftones EPK and stuff like the Press Kits and stuff, and I think Crossbreed did like a TV show or like some interview, a big interview, and they played the song Machines. And I was like, this is the heaviest shit I've ever heard. And so I think that band's crazy because they have like 2 keyboard players and it's just like a massive like 7-piece band or something like that. But yeah, crazy band.
I actually dig that record.
It's great. I think it's awesome.
Not music. So if you close your eyes, right, musically, it's not bad. Like they hit all the right notes. It's when you add the music to the visuals. I mean, again, this is the apotheosis of new metal trends all thrown in a blender. White guys with dreads, glow-in-the-dark tattoos, a keyboard player. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, and you know, you can't divorce. Sometimes it's hard to divorce the music from the image. And the music is really good. But I said, like, memes I come across with Tim, I'm like, Tim, we have to deep dive on this album because these guys were starting to come up right as I was kind of trending out of new metal. So it was kind of weird to be like, oh my God, is this where it's become? You know how like fashion grabs a trend and it beats it to death? Like, you know, low-cut jeans got to the point where Christina Aguilera, when she was ex-Tina, like you could tell they weren't even over her hips. Like this was new metal going to that Christina jeans moment where it was oh my God.
I always think about that with Power Man 5000, how like first record it was like a weird like funk metal thing.
Dude, I love that first album.
I think it's great. I actually have an Ozfest 96 VHS tape, and it's got like a bunch of random performances. Like it's got like Neurosis and stuff on it, and but I remember seeing the video for like the Power Man stuff, and I'm just like, this is crazy because I feel like like their singer's Spider One, he's related to Rob Zombie. He's Rob Zombie's brother.
Yep.
And I think it's really funny because like White Zombie didn't do the whole like outfit thing. And then I feel like they did, like, Power Man did that first record, and then his brother watched Rob Zombie put out Hellbilly Deluxe, and then was like, shit, we gotta step it up. And then they just, like, put on a bunch of, like, spacesuits, and we're like, cool, now we wrote Worlds Collide, now we're the biggest band in the world right now. And then that's just how, I just feel like because, like, it's a great record, I just feel like his brother had to have some sort of influence on him to make that genre change.
Absolutely. They had to be feeding on each other. Now you got me thinking, Jordan, you're probably going to come across my little brother on one of these merch swap things. He's got all of our old merch from like the late 90s. Like he's got Ultra Spank shirts, Cold. He has a Limp Bizkit windbreaker, which I'm begging him to dig out because I want
I used to have one. I sold it like an idiot, but I need to get it back. But
the one that he's got that I'm like, Dan, you got to find this because I want it. He has an old maroon God Lives on the Water t-shirt. And I love that band.
That band was crazy. That was good.
And I'm like, Dan, you got to find this. He's like, dude, it's in a box somewhere. I'm like, come on, man, come on.
If I'm a sucker for Ultra Spank, so anything.
Oh, that first album, Jordan, is awesome.
It's crazy. Awesome. I love that one. I'm also a huge fan of Low Pro. That band's crazy. Like I love it. Like Pete Murray, just like those two bands he did, I think were great. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny because I found a bunch of old press photos of Aaron Lewis from Stained wearing a Low Pro shirt because he had them on like his Geffen imprint or whatever, and he's wearing a Low Pro shirt, and I'm like, oh my God, what I would give to find one of those Low Pro shirts to throw in my collection here, and so I'm always scouring like just merch shops and stuff on Facebook, and it's a mess. Like I think I have a problem at this point. I'll send my girlfriend Depop links and stuff, and then she's like, "You gotta quit." And I'm like, I can't.
Tim will tell you every Friday, the running joke with me and Tim is it's called Clear Out Your Bandcamp Cart Friday. And I'm like, Tim, I might have to move in because the wife is going to kill me. Because she's like, what is with these $73 purchases you just made? I'm like, well, you know, kind of sort of.
That was a cool band.
So we talked about this briefly. I did this in the open. Jordan, have you heard the new Marilyn Manson album?
I didn't get a chance to listen. I heard the first single that was put out on it. And I really enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure what to think of it at first because, like, it's been a while since I don't want to say, like, since I enjoyed a Manson record, but since I heard one that I was like, yeah, I guess I want to listen to the rest of this. Like, the last couple of records I heard it, I'm like, this is pretty cool, but, like, it doesn't really have the energy that grabbed me with, like, Antichrist Superstar and, like, Portrait of an American Family when I first heard, like, it doesn't bite as much. And then this new stuff, I was like, this reminds me of like the chiller side of like Mechanical Animals almost.
Yeah, Tim, I can't wait, Tim, for you to listen and tell me what you think because I listened to it today. I actually listened to it twice. I had it repeat. To me, this is Marilyn Manson doing David Bowie. Circa the Nothing Records imprint style. So this is like him channeling Trent Reznor and the Downward Spiral, and there's some obvious there's the industrial influences. I actually think the album is great. I was really surprised. I was like, shit, this is really much better than I thought it was. But Tim, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it because I am convinced it's one of the best things they've done maybe since Hollywood.
I think Hollywood's a great record. I don't see that one get mentioned along the like people dig the first three and they think those are like flawless records. I'm like, throw Hollywood in there because that record's awesome. Like it just.
Tell you what, if it sounds like Mechanical Animals, I'm all in. I fucking love that record.
Like when I heard that first single, I was like, oh cool, it's like Great Big Wide World Part 2. Like this is cool. And then I know now that I had a bunch of new stuff dropped yesterday, and I was just so like overwhelmed. I'm like, man, I gotta check out everything, and I have it sitting in my iTunes library right now. I just gotta check it out. So
yeah, I also have it right in queue. Same thing.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So Jordan, Tim touched on like the scene in your neck of the woods. What are some other bands that we're not aware of, that we're not listening to, that we should be listening to?
Obviously, there's, I guess Orthodox isn't from my area, but I'm a big fan of Mike White, their drummer, and so I always got to rep them. There's some other bands that our members are in. Our bass player Knox is in a band called Rejoice. It sounds to me like early Converge, real like chaotic sounding stuff. Really cool band. They're called Outsider Heart. They used to be a band called Wait for the Day, and they kind of changed sounds a little bit. It's really, really good like pop rock stuff, almost like just not as positive sounding pop rock, I guess. Like it doesn't sound. It's like what metal bands kind of are doing now to be a little more radio friendly, but they pull it off really, really well. They have I think like 2 songs out so far, but they're incredible. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some more really good bands. It's really funny. I'm in a bunch of stuff too, and I don't want to like, oh, you should listen to my other stuff. I play guitar in a band called Ritual Eulogy. It's like old, like you think bands, I would say old, but bands like Kublai Khan, that's real like, low tune, just like heavy hardcore stuff. Stuff like Disembodied, I guess. Some other Columbus bands. I feel like a dick right now because I know somebody from Columbus listens to this and you're like, why didn't you mention you know who I am. Our drummer plays in another band called Braver. It's really good. It's like real. There's a band called Balance and Composure from Pennsylvania. It's just real like grungy rock stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's really good. Yeah, I'm trying to really think. There's another band, a buddy of mine, Braden. They sing in a band called Sarah Safe, and it's really, really cool. Reminds me a lot of this band Architects, and a lot of eclectic mix of bands in the area lately that are doing really cool stuff, and it's always really cool to see. Like there's a lot of bands doing live shows now in the area, and they're all doing really cool stuff. Oh, another band that comes to mind from Columbus. There's a band called N Love, and it's EN Love, and they're a really cool, like punky hardcore band. There's a band called Trash Talk. They remind me a lot of Trash Talk, real like noisy punk stuff, and just really cool band. So like I said, big mixture of stuff, and it's really funny because like all these dudes in these bands are all just good friends of mine. And it's really funny to see us all like be pals and get along. Like I think a majority of us were at this wedding tonight for our friend or our guitar player, and it's so funny to see us all hang out. We've been friends for years now. We all play like vastly different styles of music from each other, and we all just like to support each other. And it's a really loving community here in Columbus. I think it's really, really cool, really healthy. So it's really, really good shit. Another band that a lot of the heavy people might like is a band called Bather, which also Mike from Orthodox plays drums in. And they're from Chillicothe, Ohio, and they're really just like, I don't know how to describe it. They're really intense, like death metal kind of stuff, but it's really slow and kind of depressing. And it's just a sonic barrage of just pain. That's about all I can put it. It's just pain and suffering, but it's so good. And a couple of the promos that we have, a couple of our promo shots, their singer Josh took for us. So yeah, we like to include a lot of like kind of like homies in the feel of our operation at ZoneZero. Like we had like our friend Josh take photos. We have Colin doing our artwork for us, and I don't know, before we try to outsource anything to anybody, who we could just go, hey man, I've never met you before in my life. I trust you with making stuff for my band. I would like to get a hold of somebody who I can just text and go like, hey, what's up, man? Like I'm thinking we could do this. So big positive energy here in Columbus.
So a couple things before we get out of here, because we don't want to take up your whole night.
All good.
So let's do this, because I love to ask people this. I love to put them on the spot.
Yeah.
Give me your 5 best nu metal records of all time.
Cool. I was expecting this, honestly. I was like, there's going to be some sort of quiz at the end of this. So I say like number 1, you got Violence by Nothing Face. Number 2, I guess I'm trying to think of the top 5 CDs I picked to just take with me in my car, because like I just picked by like what am I in the mood for. I'd say 13 Ways to Bleed on Stage by Cold, which just turned 20 today.
Which is a great album.
Great album. I think it's insane. I think Scooter Ward is one of the most like unique voices in the genre.
Absolutely.
He has this really cool, like grungy, like real rasp to him. I think it's great. What's that record called? This is me and my friend AJ talked about this a while back too. What's Evolve by Endo? I think that record's really good. That record, I see a lot of people talk, like not really talk shit about it, but there's a lot of kids who are like, oh, I finally checked out this record. It's really not like what I thought it was going to be. It just kind of sounds weird. All the songs kind of sound the same and everything. I was like, no, you have to listen to it. I had to be one of those guys who was like, no, you got to listen to it deeper, man. Like you got to find the meaning within the meaning. But I'm like, go back and listen to it. It's super consistent, and it's that style. It's just that energy. Let's see. Well, I do have a Cold Chamber tattoo, so I will have to say the first Cold Chamber record. A lot of people like to say chamber music, but there's just something really raw and cool about the first Cold Chamber record. It's just so it's funny to think that like the two dudes from Orgy produced that record before they became Orgy, and they have like something to do with it. But it's the history of that band is also really crazy. Like knowing that they've been a band for like years, and like their singer quit, then came back before they even made their first record. They played Ozfest before having anything recorded. And it's just so I got to go with the first Cold Chamber record for number 4. Number 5, I'm trying to think of a really good end of one. One that I just did. Good one. I don't see get talked about as much as their first record, Shadow Zone by Static X.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I get people will talk about Wisconsin Dead Trip, a lot, and actually I never got to see them because like I have a framed picture of Wayne Static on my wall in our bedroom, and I always tell them, I'm just like, everyone's got a portrait of Jesus in their house, so like I got And because Wayne Static was like the man for me, like when I was getting into like stuff, like he was my inspiration in high school. And I got into that stuff. Like I remember hearing Push It, like our radio station just played it all of a sudden. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. I got to know what this is. And then like, luckily at the end, they were like, oh, that was Static X with Push It. And I was like, cool. Instantly Googled it, bought all the small music and everything. And then, so people like to say that first record. I actually didn't get to catch him with Wayne, but I caught those 2 shows with, they got that new guy Zero, which I think it's Edsel dope. So
absolutely,
it's got to be Edsel dope. It's 100%.
It is.
Yeah,
it's too similar. It's too similar. Like it just the body style. And it's funny how he kept trying to like, it's not me, man. Tattoos are different. It's not me. Here I am backstage. Here's a photo picture of me like backstage while Static X is playing. I'm like, okay, it's 2020, dipshit. We don't have Photoshop. Like, you can't fool us.
I could literally tell you I know 100%. I can't tell you why I know that, but I know 100% it's him.
Like, it's just, as soon as I heard him talk on stage, I'm like, son of a bitch, it's Edsel dope. So, which is really funny because I'm like, wow, every other band tonight played like a 45, 50-minute set. Why did Dope play like 25 minutes? Oh, gee, yep. I know why. You didn't want to sing too long and too hard, blow his voice out.
Right.
They played the real, like, chill stuff too, like, still heavy, but he didn't have too much vocal stuff going on. But I really liked them with him. It was kind of really crazy. Like, that split a lot of people down the middle with like, oh, we should just let it rest. You know, Wayne's gone, with let it die and everything. A lot of people are like, no, this is really cool. We can hear some unreleased stuff and keep Static X going and everything. And that way people could still see him. I thought the shows were great. I had no complaints. That they were really cool. It was really cool hearing, you know, Wisconsin Death Trip front to back. And they threw a lot of like, I thought it was really funny. They left out the Cult of Static. Like they played not a medley, but they play like all of Wisconsin Death Trip. They play like 5 songs from Machine, and like 3 from Shadow Zone, 2 from Star War, and then like they'd go back into some Wisconsin Death Trip stuff. I'm like, you completely went over Cult of Static, which I think was really funny. So people talk about Wisconsin Death Trip a lot. Then they talk about Machine a little bit because we got like, you know, the song like Cold and everything on it. And then I never really see people talk about Shadow Zone. And then, you know, I took a deep dive one day too. I was on a drive. I had to drive about an hour and a half from a buddy's house in Indiana to Louisville, Kentucky. And about a 3-hour drive, never mind. And so I just kept that album on repeat. I'm like, man, I want to really absorb this record. And then like each time it would end, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait till this record starts back up again because this is so good. I think for that record, I think that Wayne's like vocal style evolved. I read the story about how when he worked on the Queen of the Dam soundtrack with Jonathan Davis, because Jonathan Davis was like, yeah, you wrote all these songs, but you can't sing them because you're under contract with this label and everything. He just had a bunch of friends come in and he had them sing instead. And so Wayne was like, yeah, working with John Davis influenced a lot of my vocals on the new record. And then I read that, went back and listened to it. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Like I can totally hear the John Davis influence in Wayne's voice right now. And so I think that record's just an overlook. That and Start a War are pretty much like I think they're overlooked Static X records for me. So.
It definitely. Yeah, the new album is my album of the year right now.
It's crazy. It's so good. I think it's really, really good. I think there's not a lot of bands that can do the comeback thing and really nail it. But I think as soon as I started hearing stuff about it, at first I was like, is this really going to happen? Or are they just like, are they just baiting us? And so when it finally happened, I was like, cool, we got a release date for it. Can't wait to hear the whole thing. And finally got to hear it all front to back. And I was like, well, they did it. So
yeah, exactly.
Really
I mean, I think come the 25th, I think I know what my album of the year will be. But right now, it's Static X.
What's coming out the 25th?
New Deftones.
Oh God, you're right. That new song was incredible. I'm such a picky person about like, it's weird. Like I remember small little details about stuff. Like they were like, oh, we're recording with Terry Date, and then I was like, oh, this would be cool. I can't wait to hear what this is gonna sound like. And then as soon as I heard the opening of that song, I was like, I can instantly tell they went to Terry Date based on like how Chino's vocals sound and how the drums sound and everything. I was like, this is a Terry Date record. I'm really happy about it. Because it's like it still sounds like modernized, like modern Deftones, and then it just has this like I told my friend, I was like, it just sounds a little bit to me like the production on White Pony, and I think that's really cool. It just gives out this really cool vibe. It just sounds like a perfect mix of the old Deftones with the new stuff. So I really can't wait to hear the whole thing. It's kind of ballsy to put out the last song on the record first. I always think that's really weird when bands do that. When they put out the first song or the last song as the lead single, I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And then most of the time it pays off. So
then it makes you think like, all right, if that's the single, because usually with Deftones, the singles are good, but they're not anywhere close to the best song. They don't blow their load
all at once. Yeah, they don't just go like, this is the best song. Everything else is okay. And so that's actually the formula. I've heard that from a lot of people. They're like, yeah, the first single is always the one that's like, it's good, but it's not like, it's just kind of a to kind of ease you into it, and the rest of the record's awesome. I'm like, man, if that's what's the first single and that's what's going to kind of ease us into this, I'm really curious to see what they got cooking.
Yeah, so. The funny thing is I have to drive my mom to get like a cortisone shot or something on the 25th. Oh. And I was like, hey, Mom, I hope you like loud music because that's not coming out of my radio for months. So
it's going to be so good. I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's been a while.
Can't fucking wait for it, man. Speaking of can't wait, dude, like I'm like itching to hear more of these ZoneZero songs. Like you're killing me with saying you have all
I really can't wait because I always tell friends of mine when because I've shown a few people some demos and stuff, just like close friends I trust and everything. There's a buddy of mine, Travis. He's always been a big fan of just me and him talk new metal all the time, and he's a friend of our drummer and our guitar player. And so I started showing him this stuff in the beginning before I even first put the EP out. He was like, "This stuff's awesome! Like, keep doing it." So every time I would just come up with a demo, I would just send it his way. I'm like, "Yeah, tell me what you think of this." And he was like, "This is crazy. This has like crazy radio potential and everything." So he's heard most of the new stuff. But what's really funny, I actually I know this probably isn't going to stay the same when we actually do a record and everything, but I put together like the sequence of how I think the record should go if we use these songs and everything, listen to it. And in my car on the drive home one day, and I was like, you know what? I was like, this EP is really good, but this record is just going to blow the EP like out of the water. I think it's really good. I finally found the niche with like the way I write songs and everything. And so I'm just really proud of it. I really hope that sooner rather than later it'll happen. That we can get like some new tunes out. But in the meantime, like just gonna sit and make sure it's nice and perfect. I want to make sure that when people hear it, they don't say like, oh, this is good, but the EP was better. I don't want to be one of those bands that they're like, oh, the early stuff was awesome.
No, so, look, after hearing Misdirected, there's no way you guys are going.
That's our we got. What's really funny is we got a lot of and I finished writing that song the day that we finished that we put out Virus, and I wrote that. I had that intro riff in my head, just floating around. I was at work one day. I remember specifically where I thought of it. I was walking. Where I used to work in this big building. It was a call center. I was walking back from the bathroom back to my desk, and I was walking on the hallway, and I just thought of this rhythm. I was just like, I was like, that'd be a cool little opener. I was like, how would I open that song? I was like, cool, lo-fi guitars with the drum filter and everything. I was like, and then we kick full bore into it. And then I went home and recorded it. I was like, you know what this sounds like? I was like, this sounds like Pass Out of Existence by Chimera. I was like, this sounds like it could be a Chimera song.
Oh yeah, I could definitely hear that.
Oh yeah, that was the big thing. I was like, this could be a Chimera song. That's kind of funny. I was like, Chimera, and some people said Spineshank, which I kind of get. There was a lot of people who were like, this is a Spineshank song, and I was just like, I don't know, but I'll take it because Spineshank's fucking sick. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, I was like, Spineshank fucking rocks. So I was like, I'll take it 100%. And but what's really funny, I was like, this is just such a funny. I titled it like Chimera song on the demo and everything before I had a title for it. It was like Chimera 2001 or whatever was the title for it. And then we put it out, and like all the YouTube comments were like, yo, this is straight up 2001 Chimera. And I was like, told the guys, I was like, what did I fucking tell you? I was like, I knew it. I knew that this was our Chimera song. And I was like, maybe it's just the Ohio heavy shit bleeding into my mix, like bleeding into my writing or whatever. And that's another thing I think is really funny is coming from Columbus, my girlfriend's from Cleveland, and I always used to joke with her about how much I was like, man, you know, it's so funny. Columbus is so much better than Cleveland. Cleveland just sucks. And then I tell her, I'm like, but you know what's really funny is y'all got all the best music. I was like, y'all had like Chimera, y'all had like Mushroomhead, y'all had like Integrity.
Fucking love Mushroomhead.
Oh, they're crazy. I just saw them at the what's really funny is I always noticed how well that Cleveland shared musicians when I realized that Integrity's album Integrity 2000 was actually written and recorded by the guitar player, drummer, and bass player for Mushroomhead.
Yeah, Popson, and then
Popson was on there.
Yep.
Skinny and Gravy were on that record.
I tell people that in the hardcore scene all the time. They're like, no.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. I had the same thing happen. Everyone's like, oh man, Integrity 2000 is so sick, but like Mushroomhead, that just sucks. I don't know how Cleveland people like that. I'm like, well, I hate to break it to you, but like your favorite Mushroomhead record was written, or your favorite Integrity record, your favorite like old Cleveland hardcore record was written by new metal dudes. Like,
exactly.
hate to tell you, but
exactly. And
love to burst your bubble, but
there's people to this day that are like, that's not right. I'm like, okay, you think what you think,
yeah,
man.
That's cool, but I've heard the dudes from Mushroomhead say it from their mouth. So, like,
I came up to Cleveland a few years ago for their. Remember? Do you know the Odeon?
Yeah, the Odeon. Yeah, my girlfriend actually works at the Agora in Cleveland. They shipped to that.
Oh shit! Okay, yeah, so, I came up for that Mushroomhead show on May 1st, like 5 years ago. Man, that show was so good, cool. Dude.
They're so good. Like I just think they're incredible live. Like there's a lot of people who that's like a big feud with like there's the Slipknot Mushroomhead beef and everything. But I just think they were a band that I had no idea they were from Ohio until like a year after a buddy of mine. I was in like a lot of stuff happened for me when I was in high school, like finding all this music and stuff. And this kid, I was in marching band with in high school. His name was Seth, and he was like, "Yo, I know you like Mudvayne and all this stuff, so let me show you this band called Mushroomhead." And then he showed me the video for Solitaire Unraveling. And I was like, this is crazy. This is like super good stuff. I'm going to go home and listen to all their stuff now. And I did. Then later on, I was like, oh, cool. They're from Cleveland. And so I always tell people, or like people in the hardcore scene, I'm like, yeah, Chimera and Mushroomhead are my favorite Cleveland hardcore bands. And they get so pissed off at me for it. They get so funny.
That's awesome.
They're just like, what are you talking about? And then I really think it's funny when I had a friend who's like knee deep in hardcore, just like loves just hardcore bands. And then he was like, one day he posted the end of Severed by Chimera. And it's just this crushing breakdown. And he was like, nobody told me this band was this heavy. And I'm like, yeah, if you put down the hardcore for like half a second.
Yeah, for like 15 minutes.
Pick up another band. I was like, I'm not saying you have to go strictly for new metal. I was like, but I'm glad that you found that band.
I said that
how heavy some of the stuff is.
I said that to Jay when he was over for the for a podcast. I said, dude, nobody at this time frame was putting out Mosh this hard.
No.
And a Chimera record.
No,
it's fucking hard, dude.
The not only the Mosh, the double bass.
Yeah,
this was the first new metal band to actually do double bass runs and blasting.
Another I think it was another I always show people like man, if you really like moshy heavy stuff, and I was like, let me introduce you to the world of just Chimera as a whole, because I can talk about that band all day long, but I think that's the end of Eyes of a Criminal from Impossibility of Reason. I'm like, you can't find a harder breakdown than like the end of that song. I was like, no old hardcore band that you like could be as heavy as this.
That's the best song on that record.
It's so sick. It's just the way it like just slows down and comes in. I'm just like, there's no way. Like the way I get excited about like hard, like heavy riffs and stuff, I don't ever get like excited about it. I just sit there and go, Jesus Christ. And I just get real quiet and I'm like, oh my God, this is too much. And there's just so much more like going down the Chimera line for like the timeline of just albums. I'm like, this got crazier and crazier. Like when they had Kevin Talley on their third record. And I'm like, cool. I was like, cool, this guy played in Dying Fetus. I expect nothing less than like hard shit. And then I listened to the record and I'm like, yep, I was right.
That opening track
is incredible.
That opening track is a fucking monster.
There's a demo that I don't have lyrics or anything done for it yet, but I always title our songs based on what I think it is. Like I just put a demo in to write lyrics for it. It's called ZoneZero, and it's always just cutesy little fun names. And there's one called ZZ, because I always refer to our band as ZZ for ZoneZero, and there's one demo in there called ZZ Remains, as in Nothing Remains, because the intro to Nothing Remains is real like stop and go, and I think the intro of the song is just like it's a real stop and go. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna name this a Chimera song. There's one it's called like, I think I literally called it like just like Trust Company ZoneZero. There's a couple more. I think it's funny. There's a couple like Zero Shanks, like static Z's. There's a couple of those, and eventually I find actual names for them. There was one. It was like Primer Lincoln 5 or something like that because it sounded like a mix of the two.
That's great.
And there's one band I don't think I'll ever come up with a title for, and that's the band Reveille, because I will never write like harder rap metal than I think that band ever has. So that's a band. That's another band. I should have put them in my top 5. I guess that's a runner-up for me. Is that Bleed the Sky by Reveille? That's another top 5 I should have put in there.
That's not a bad record. Not a bad record at all.
That was just another band I would actually go through. I'm like, is there any bands I'm not listening to? Any bands I'm missing? Like, and I would go through on Wikipedia and I would find just like Ozfest lineups. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's Ozfest in the late 90s. Like, what else am I going to find other than new metal bands? And so I went through and found a bunch of rap rock bands, and that's where I discovered, I'd say fortunately and unfortunately, I discovered Methods of Mayhem. Because I'm like, it's a guilty pleasure band for me.
Yeah, there's some of it wasn't. I mean, it was what it was. I mean, it's definitely a product of its time.
Like I saw
some tracks weren't bad.
Like there's that Twitter account. It's also an Instagram account called Catatonic Youth.
Oh yeah, hilarious.
They posted a video of Methods of Mayhem live, and I had already seen this Ozfest video for like years floating around on YouTube. And then I saw them. They're like, "What the fuck is this?" And they posted a video, and I was like, "Oh no! Like my guilty pleasure band. Like everyone's gonna know that I like bad things. This sucks." That was the same thing where like this was before Trapped went in fucking sane. And so I was like, "Yeah, Trapped's not a bad band. Whatever." Picked up the CD at like a local used bookstore or whatever. And then like the next week, their singer was just being a dick to everyone. And I was like, "Oh man!" I just spent $6 on your CD at half price books. And now you're going to tell me that you're a racist dickhead? Cool, thanks. Like, now I got to throw this away. And so I have to, like, incognito listen to some of these bands because I'm just like, man, like, Head PE. I'm like, man, your singer's a nutcase now. And I can't listen to your band, but I'm still going to because Bartender slaps. So
yeah, there are some good tracks on that second album. That first album I still swear that first album is pretty darn fun.
Oh, it's crazy! It's really good stuff. So I went digging on like the Ozfest lineups and stuff, and there's bands like Reveille and stuff, and I was like, I don't see a lot of rap metal bands that are good and or like that are worth a damn or anything. I was like, I'm gonna check this out, and checked out those 2 records they have, and I was like, man, this is actually pretty good. There was one band, I think they were on like Ozfest 01 or something. I can't remember their name, but they were like another rap metal band. I was like, maybe this will be like Reveille, and I'll enjoy it. And then I put it on, and I was like, no, like I do not.
What was it? Was it Primer 55?
It was not Primer 55. I actually love that band. I think Primer 55 is incredible. It's funny because people bring up the first Primer 55 record. I think that record's really good. But I took a deep listen into the second record, and they stepped up the songwriting game on that record amazingly. Like they didn't just rely on like the bouncy riffs and the rap, and like he was singing, and there's like trumpets and trombones in some songs, and I'm like, this is really weird, but I really, really like it. And there's like jazzy stuff going on, and I just love when bands can like expand like with the sound. And that's kind of what I think of when I think of like the new metal era, going from like what I always see like when I picture like the year time frame, and I'm just a little baby child compared to some people when it comes to this stuff because I'm only 25. But what I see it is like 96 through like 2002, like prime years. And so like a lot of those records I listened to are from that time frame. And there's some bands that when like 2003 and 2004 rolled around, they just kind of like keeled over and died.
Yep.
They just kind of stopped. They're like, we can't go any further. This is nobody likes this. And then there's some bands that just kind of changed it up. Like I honestly think that Mudvayne is one of those bands. They went from the crazy weird stuff with LD50, and then they put out like an insane prog metal record, like with And of All Things to Come. And then they went like the kind of more groovy route with Lost and Found, and then Hell Yeah happened.
And of All Things to Come is their best record.
I think it is too. I just had this conversation the other day, and I think it's a perfect, like LD50 is cool, but I think people are just like, oh, that's the one with Dig, right? Haha. And then they discredit the rest of the record, which I think the rest of the record's great. And then I put on End of All Things to Come, and I'm like, man, this is like a smart record.
Oh yeah, dude, World's So Cold, and oh my God, so good.
Like it's just a big mixture of stuff. Like it's really, really heavy, like there's the bridge in the song. I think it's Scrying, and it's real quiet and real somber for a while, and then it just builds up and then just comes right back in and just like I listened to it in my car on the drive the other day, and they like I didn't realize a lot of these bands were putting like bass drops in their music. And then when that part comes in, it just hits, and my whole car just shook. And I was like, "Man, this band is so sick." Like it's just, I was like, I've heard this record a million times since I was a teenager, and I'm really listening to it for the first time, apparently, like right now. Because every time I listen to it, I'm just like, man, this just blows me away. Like perfect record opener with silence, like it just kind of just kicks you right in the face. And
Absolutely,
a lot of stuff does that. So that's kind of how the first stuff on our record goes. Like not a lot of bands put like intros on their records anymore, but the way I want it to be is like a little 30-second intro, and then like our actual first song kicks in, with that first one just right out of the gate just like pounds, and I think it's really cool. And this one band's just had an energetic start to the record. So
let me ask you this: 36 Crazy Fist.
Awesome, great band. I think it's really. Me and a friend talked about like their records after Bitterness to Star, and how they kind of went the more like metalcore, a little fused with new metal stuff, but that first record is crazy. I think it's really good. What's that song? It's the first song on there.
On Bitterness?
Yeah, it's
yeah, I know. I can't. I'm trying to think of it.
Turns to Ashes. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just pulled that up. That song was the way it starts. Like, I think that chorus is great. I love his voice. I think it's super unique for what they're trying to do. He had like a real like shakiness to it. It worked. Like he controlled it real well. And so, but then you have songs like "Bury Me Where I Fall," which are like really heavy. I had the guy from Skin Lab on it, I think.
Oh, I love
Steve from
Skin
Lab. That's another band I really enjoy too.
Yeah, Disembody is so fucking good.
It's so good. I love that whole record. And then but I think their Crazy Fist is awesome. I think they're they're still really good. There's a venue in Cleveland or Lakewood. It's around Cleveland. It's called the Foundry. And there's a guy on YouTube, his name's Leo. He's the sound guy there, and he puts a GoPro in the corner of the room, like the stage, and then he will record the board audio, and then he'll upload them. Like he'll mix the audio.
Yeah, what'd you say his name is? Leo.
Leo. His last name's like I can't pronounce that last name.
Sapinski or something like that.
Guy, yeah, that's a venue in Cleveland. He does that. There's a 36 Crazy Fist set on his page, and they're still like so good.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of bands I see pull that off, and I'd like to see a lot of bands adapt to like the modern like style of things, because I saw their guitar player. He had like one of those like digital boards and stuff. He was like running stuff off up to, and I'm like, man, there's some bands that still get up on stage and they're like, oh, I can't play. I blew a tube in like my Marshall or whatever. And this guy's like, I'm just plugged right in. Like I'm on this board.
Yep, Steve Holt.
Plug right in.
Yep, Steve Holt. Really good. Very underrated band, man. I keep telling Jay, dude, you got to get into that band.
They're super good. I think they're incredible.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man. We'll let you get out of here, but I want to say one thing before that.
Yeah, what's up?
I do hate you for one reason, because that "Losing My Grip" song is constantly stuck in my head.
Dude, that's the one. That's like one of the ones that people were just like, I think they're like, that's the one. That's the perfect. Like the chorus is incredible. And I'm always just I always just remember where I was like when I wrote that stuff. I was actually on my way. Our bass player had got home from a tour. He toured with that band, Angels and Airwaves. He was he teched for a band that was touring with them. I believe it was, I forget what exactly he did from there, called Charming Liars. But he had just come back from a tour, and he was working the door at a venue. And I had the instrumental for that song playing on my phone. And I was like, man, this song has a weird chord progression. I don't know what I'm going to sing over this. And I was just humming that. And then I was just like on the way out of the bar, and I just happened to sing those words like to myself while I was thinking of it. I was like, cool, I got it. I'm going to go write that down. Next day I went and recorded it. But yeah, that's the one I had a lot of fun with. I actually wrote that song after I listened to a bunch of Il Nino for like,
oh yeah,
I can't like correlate like, but I got the inspiration because like, I think it's that song, What Comes Around, I think is what it's called.
Yep. Because
like the main riff is like this like do like this like real like steady, and then when it comes out of the chorus, it cuts into halftime and it's real heavy. And I was like, it's just like a real like heavy breakdown style. And I was like, I gotta have a song that does that. And so in the beginning, you notice like it's like this upbeat kind of tempo, and then when it comes out of that chorus, it cuts in half, and it kind of it's a little more head bobby. Straight up rip that from El Nino. But
great fucking track, man.
So I appreciate that. I'm really glad. I hope people like all the new stuff. I just think the new stuff is so much cooler. Like I go back on this EP, I'm so proud of it, but I'm way too ready to get this new stuff out. I'm so impatient. So
yeah, I'll tell you what. When you impress my girlfriend with anything, that's a huge achievement because she's she don't listen to that much music, but she heard me listen to it last night. She's like, "Who the fuck is this?"
That's so sick. I love to hear that.
And I'm like, well, happy. We're talking to Jordan tomorrow, so
love it.
There you go.
Appreciate that. That's awesome.
Absolutely, dude. And listen, man, when the new record comes out, let's get you on again because this is a fun conversation.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love talking to you guys. This is great. Good time.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for the time.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely. This will be out Wednesday. Is it this Wednesday or next?
We just did
next,
one, so
actually.
it's next Wednesday.
Yeah, next Wednesday. This will be out, man.
Cool.
Well, yeah, like I said, looking forward to the new stuff. And, dude, thank you again.
Of course.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Later, guys.
Thanks, Jordan.